All right, guys, and today we're going to give you a little tutorial, talk about redraft leagues. Give you a little background if you're new to fantasy.
Background.
Exactly what a redraft league is.
Redraft.
How it
What
works.
this guy's doing, man.
And our personal strategies on how we draft our teams.
It's called a hype man.
So you guys fill me in here a little bit if I miss anything, but redraft league is probably the most standard league that people play, right, across the board, I would think.
Yeah.
And it's every year you're drafting a new team, round by round, just like kind of like the NFL draft. There's a few different formats of drafting. Some leagues choose to do an auction. Some do just a traditional 1 through 10 or 12 or 16, whatever amount you have in your league. And then some leagues do a snake draft, which is, you pick first and then you don't pick again till, the last pick of the second round.
Yep.
Very simple, different strategies for how you draft in those different types of drafts. We'll address that. But yeah, so basically you're going to focus on these redraft leagues, mostly on the guys that are going to produce this year. You're a little less likely to take risk early in these drafts because you're trying to optimize the value of your high picks. You do take flyers later on, but it's a little different than the dynasty, which we'll talk about later, where you're thinking more long term.
Right.
So that out of the way, Mark, what are some of your draft strategies, or how do you approach a redraft league?
So redraft, obviously, you're in it to win it. So I mean, you're not taking flyers, like you said. You're not taking flyers, especially not early on. Usually in redraft leagues, you're also scouring. The waiver wire is huge in redraft leagues. Yep. So it's a little forgiving if you don't get your guys towards the end with flyers. Like if you're going to go flyers, you're going to take your flyers at the end, right? So you want your studs up front. So redraft leagues, it's not best ball, so you're setting your lineup. So you're looking to fill out your lineup really before you start kind of backing your guys up. And what's important to me too in these types of leagues is handcuffs, which are, you go and you get the backup player for your studs in the event that one of your studs goes down. Because if one of your studs goes down, when you're trying to fill out your lineup and you're not really trying to just bolster one position.
And that's mainly the case with running backs,
huge.
right?
Yeah. So if you're able to draft Derrick Henry, you maybe are going to try to take Darrington Evans or another one of the backup running backs that you feel strongest about.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and in the case in point last year, you have the first pick, you're going Christian McCaffrey.
Greatest example.
If you don't, in round 8, round 9, even later than that, round 11, round 12, you didn't back him up with Mike Davis, you're screwed.
Yeah, you were in trouble.
Especially in a snake format because you got McCaffrey 1. Now you're not picking again until 20th or 24th.
Except me, like in Rockies League, I did that, and then I still made it to the championship with I had McCaffrey, so it worked out for me. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Most cases.
Is this one of those leagues where he starts off with the 4 teams? They all draft.
No, this is actually a league that has integrity, so it's well managed.
If you want to go there,
it's well managed.
Integrity.
It's not a bunch of Pasquales running around. They're
it's just me,
undersized.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so
Wow.
I like that strategy, right? Another strategy, or one that I try to do, is if I know that Phil has drafted Christian McCaffrey, I'm actually going to probably a little bit earlier try to draft Mike Davis and either hold him over his head for trade bait. It's a nice sweetener if I'm trying to get a wide receiver I want, or maybe a future draft pick. Or in the case of last year, I actually would have wound up with a pretty solid running back in the absence.
So you're that guy. You're the vulture.
I'm that guy, absolutely.
You go and
So like early in the draft, are you? All right, so I'll speak for myself. So I'm going skill position, obviously, early, but I usually like to go running back, wide receiver, running back, wide receiver. And then in the 5th round, if there's another, the value, I'll go another wide receiver or running back there. Are you guys that like there? Or I know you've talked Kelsey up a lot. Are you going to go early on a tight end? Maybe go early on a Lamar Jackson or whoever the flavor of the year is as a quarterback? Or do you just kind of stick to that? Like I that's kind of what I've done for years.
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. And another factor that comes into play there is, is there a flex position in this redraft league too?
Yeah.
And what kind of flex position? Is it a super flex, which is you could use a quarterback? So if it's a super flex league, you're going to want to take your quarterbacks early because they go super fast. So you want that top tier of quarterbacks. If it's your standard flex league where it's a wide receiver running back, being that running back drops off pretty quickly, I like to go running back, and then come back for my wide receivers. But like you highlighted, and I've said before, if you're picking towards the back end of that first round, you have to make the argument of getting Travis Kelce in that first round because the drop off from Kelce to the next tight end, which is Darren Waller, who's also super skilled, was significant. And after that was just ridiculous. Yeah. So Kelce could potentially win you just based on that point margin.
So
alone.
Using that argument, so let's say Kelsey's off the board, and this is just your strategy, right? And Waller's there mid. To me, like you said, that drop off between the two. If I don't get Kelce, I'm not thinking about tight end to the 6th round.
Absolutely,
I'm not taking Waller in the first 4 rounds. No way.
Yeah, I probably have like two teams with Waller for that exact reason.
I tend to kind of mirror what you're doing. I like running back unless there's just an absolute stud wide receiver, and I'm unhappy with the running backs that are left. So you have to kind of adjust to your draft.
Oh yeah.
If you're in a 12-team league and the first 12 picks are running backs, honestly, I'm probably going Devontae Adams as the receiver instead of a backup that's maybe the 13th because running back drops off pretty quick. Unlike you, though, I'm probably more willing to risk a higher pick on a Waller because the tight end drops off so much, and tight end is one of the positions where you can easily separate. So if I've got Waller, I'm betting that most games he's going to score a whole lot more than Hunter Henry or one of the other.
I guess I'd do it the other way because so once I get my stud running back, I'm always looking at I want to solidify the position. And especially with running back, there's guys that do the 0 RB strategy. And we know with running backs throughout the season, you can live off the waiver wire with running backs. I mean, last few years there's been some
luck, though.
There has to be some luck, but if you're if you're playing the waiver wire, I know the way you do, I know the way I do. If you're on top of it, you're going to be able to fill in, you're going to be able to win too. So I'm not saying I want to go that route, but I am saying I want to solidify my number 1 wideout position more so than a second running back. That being said, it also depends on how the draft's falling, where you're picking. If I got the 9th pick, I might be going running back just because the way it's falling.
Right.
But it all just kind of plays out.
And it's funny too because it shifts. So in the past, I was like wide receiver whore. Like I was like, give me the guys with the targets. Everyone's going running back, and I did essentially that. I'd live off the waiver wire because you'd always be able to find the J.D. McKissick or a Phillip Lindsay, somebody who ends up having really good matchups that score well in a serviceable scenario. Whereas now you've got Devontae Adams and possibly DeAndre Hopkins, and then following that up with like a Kenny Galladay. So like you have like 3 stud receivers that are scoring 20+ points.
Yep.
You factor that in with a couple of running backs that you paired up well with a matchup. They're scoring 15 points in those weeks, and then like you said, you're winning those games.
Well, and I think you have to, in a redraft league and any league that you're in, you have to understand the rules. So you have to know about how does the waiver wire work. Is it based on the record of the teams, or is it based on who gets the waiver in first?
Is it auction? Yeah, auction.
You just got to know if it's auction and you've went wide receiver, you better leave a pretty good amount of money to outbid.
For your blind bidding.
Yeah,
That's a good point, and I'll just kind of roll that into us putting a bow on this. We all kind of gave a strategy a little bit. What are some tips you guys have? I'll let you continue because you kind of alluded to one, just, making sure you're on top of the rules.
Yeah, making sure
stuff like that.
And if you do decide to go heavy wide receiver and you've left yourself a pretty good amount of money for waivers, a waiver pickup in week 1 to week 4 is a lot more important than a waiver wire later in the season.
Absolutely.
So you can afford to spend a little bit more in that waiver because you're going to use them hopefully for the rest of the season.
The number one follow-up to your point right there was last year, James Robinson. So before week 1, when it was determined that he was going to step in, he was the highest picked player off the waiver wire. And in free agent blind bidding leagues, you usually get $1,000 cap. he was commanding 800, 900 plus dollars because it was so important.
Yeah, I remember
that
it was
early.
pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
So I guess my only anecdotal tip is, I see sometimes, we've seen in a bunch of our leagues, guys try to do these strategies that are a little out there, grabbing a bunch of quarterbacks or grabbing a bunch of tight ends.
Just to screw everybody
To
else.
screw everybody, maybe have some trade collateral. I just warn you that, hey, man, that thing could blow up in your face. So be careful with those funky strategies. Just try to stick to the basics, get good players at a good value early in the draft, and then build out the roster from there.
Stop snatching all the quarterbacks. Give me Stafford in round 12.
All right.
Leave me alone.
All right, guys. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, any social media platform, Ultimate Fantasy Locker Room. Check us out. Send us questions. We want to be here to help. We want to be your source for fantasy football.
We want to be your friend.
We want to be your friend. I'm desperate for friends. So
Keep sending me chocolates in the mail.
Okay.
All right, guys.
All right, peace.